This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. It truly is a special edition. It's a historic edition because, as you might remember, a few weeks ago, we procured a conviction of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and James Biden for bribery from Communist China, Ukraine, and Russia. There were more felonies involved in that conviction, and you can go to freedomwatchusa.org and actually read it. We previously, before getting that conviction from Citizens Judge Michael Pendleton, had indicted the Bidens. We indicted them for exactly those crimes and other crimes as listed in the indictment. A citizens grand jury indicted them. You also can see that at freedomwatchusa.org. We gave the Bidens an opportunity to plead innocent, guilty, or nolo contendere. That means no contest. They didn't show up. We gave them an opportunity to come to the subsequent trial. They didn't show up. We gave them an opportunity, if they had come, to ask for a jury. They didn't get a jury because they didn't appear, and therefore they were tried in absentia in Boise, Idaho, a friendly venue for conservatives who don't feel like being attacked as they walk down the street. That's the way things are today in some major capitals and cities throughout this country. We then proceeded to have Judge Pendleton issue a ruling, which he did, a conviction, and we gave the Bidens notice that they could come and argue against. We gave them yet a fourth bite of the apple that they weren't guilty. They didn't show up. And of course, that resulted in Michael Pendleton, the judge, issuing the sentence yesterday. And they were sentenced, each of them, to 20 years in prison, 2 years less than Enrico Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys. And there is a certain symmetry here in terms of that. The Bidens certainly should have gotten many years, but frankly, we had mercy on Joe Biden because given his health, he probably won't even make it 5 years in prison. But we're, in any event, it's not Freedom Watch which is going to carry out the sentence, but we have a right of citizens arrest in 48 states, including the District of Columbia. And when there is probable cause that a felony has been committed, citizens have a right to arrest that person or persons and turn them over to law enforcement. Now, we've gone far beyond that. We have a conviction. So we will be issuing a request to law enforcement to exercise their duties and to arrest the Bidens. That is legal in 48 states in this country, including the District of Columbia. You can believe that, the most leftist, vile place in this country. And we'll talk more about that, as I do almost in every broadcast. Because frankly, when I go back to DC, having spent almost 30 years there, I am disgusted. Actually, not that much. I would say it's about 20, but it felt like 30. It makes me sick to my stomach. I look at the buildings. I say, what's going on in those buildings? It's a beautiful city on the outside, although much of it looks like Disney World. It's not genuine Americana, but it has beautiful parks and trees and a nice river called the Potomac. Lots of rats, I might add, not just in terms of the ones that scurry about. I think there's 6 rats for every one person. But if you count the politicians, you're probably going to get up to about 30 rats for every one person. In any event, enough humor aside, because this is very serious, we did procure that conviction. And Joe Biden was also convicted for negligent homicide for what went on in Afghanistan, where negligently, at best, 13 GIs were killed at Kabul airport. And then, of course, we found out just recently that Biden had reason to know there would be an attack. To look tough politically, he ordered a drone strike on 10 Afghan allies, 7 children in those families. He killed a 3-year-old. So he's been held accountable for negligent homicide as well. And coming down the line will be a decision by Judge Pendleton with regard to Anthony Fauci, who his actions through negligent homicide and other illegal acts, he having given the seeds of COVID-19 to the Communist Chinese lab in Wuhan, is now responsible for well in excess of 6 million deaths throughout the world and counting. It's probably higher, it's probably closer to about 10, more than Adolf Hitler killed in the Holocaust. This is where we are, as I always say, ladies and gentlemen. But when you compare what the peaceful protesters, and we're going to be talking about that with one of them, Siaka Massaquoi, who's been on this show many times. He's my client, he's my friend, he's a Hollywood actor, very accomplished. He's quite funny, as a matter of fact, but this is not a funny matter. He'll tell, again, his story, because his story is exemplary of what's been happening in this country. These January 6th protesters, notwithstanding these huge sentences that are coming down, and I'm the only one that really will say it straight up. Who handed that sentence down? A judge by the name of Timothy Kelly, who's not only, he's not very intelligent, I've been in front of him before, but he's an establishment hack like the rest of the judges in the US District Court for the District of Columbia. It's not just Clinton judges, it's not just Obama judges, it's not just H.W. Bush judges or W judges, meaning Bush. Even the Trump judges are wreaking havoc and persecuting and forcing peaceful protesters to get down on their knees and to make a confession to get a lesser sentence. Now, you can read what exactly Enrico Tarrio said. That's what he did. You know, he got 22 years, but before doing that, he had to confess that he did something wrong, or he would have gotten the 33 years in all likelihood that was recommended by the prosecutors. He shouldn't have confessed to anything. And frankly, he lacked the courage of his convictions in doing it, because he knows that he did nothing that justified 22 years. In fact, he wasn't even in the District of Columbia. He was not violent. And I don't know the specifics, you know, what was running through his head. I did not represent him. But the fact is that he's just an example of many people in this country, even those who just simply allegedly trespass, getting to prison time, because the Gestapo of a Justice Department, which is in the control of brain-dead criminal Joe Biden and his yes men. Attorney General Merrick Garland is despicable ex-judge of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, and the FBI director is simply a chameleon. Christopher Wray does whatever he's told of whoever's in power. These people have been meting out what they consider to be justice, but in fact it's injustice, and they've been persecuting these peaceful protesters. And why is that? And it's not just them. They're investigating women at school board meetings, religious leaders, anyone who will stand up to the evil leftist regime of Joe Biden and the left gets that treatment. Over 1,200 people have already been indicted. Many have been tried and convicted, and it's coercion. This is our country today. It's little different than Iran, North Korea, Russia, or communist China, and many other dictatorial regimes. This is the world we live in. We are in a revolutionary mode. Most of the American people are asleep at the switch. I wrote my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America. Your Freedom Watch believes in peaceful and legal means to wage the revolution. But there are many in this country, I believe, in short order, who are about ready to explode, to turn this into a bloodbath. I trust not, I pray not. But when you see gas prices in California approaching $7 in Los Angeles, and you see the high gas prices elsewhere, the price of food, when you see what's happening with regard to the illegal immigration destroying our inner cities, which cannot house these people, and they have disease, and they get into the school system, the kids, without even vaccinations for polio or smallpox or diphtheria or whatever. You can see how angry the American people are becoming. And here's the irony, is that the Republican Party, the rhinos on Capitol Hill, run around, as I've said several times in the last few weeks, like chickens without their heads on, saying, we're going to bring Joe Biden to justice, we're going to do an impeachment inquiry, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They've never done squat. What they want is your money. They want you to contribute to them. And once they get that money, and once they retain power, if they retain power, they do nothing. did nothing to speak of with regard to the balancing the budget. And we're going to come up on a crisis on that again, or reforming Obamacare, or telling us the true facts of life with regard to these very destructive wars that we get into by both political parties, sacrificing our brave servicemen and women. There is no government in this country anymore, other than a bunch of despots running it. And Thomas Jefferson predicted it. He said every 20 years or so, we would have to wage another revolution, refreshing the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants. We're trying to head that off. And that's why I ask you to support Freedom Watch, because these citizens' grand juries, citizens' trials, enlisting the support of law enforcement to make arrests and to incarcerate those who are convicted are important. And as far as Biden's concerned, we had to send him to Guantanamo, let him go down there. Actually, it's all accounts, it's a great prison. The terrorists love it down there. It's like living in Miami, except with some bars. But all of facetiousness aside, is that we are in a crisis today. And therefore, I do want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. We need to get bigger. We need more lawyers. We need more paralegals. We need more office space. We need to be your Justice Department, because the only Justice Department which claims to be your Justice Department has become a Hitler-esque Gestapo. And it won't be too long, in my opinion, before they start mass incarcerations without due process at all. The Democrats want Biden gone. That's the irony, is because he's been a liability to them and they want to run a younger candidate like Gavin Newsom. And the Republicans want him to remain. They want to basically just beat him up for the next year and a half so they think they'll get their leader into power as the president. This is our political system. This is corrupt. The American people are not being represented. It's worse than at July 4th, 1776. I'll be right back. Stay tuned with Siaka Massaquoi. You can see Siaka, who's in effect sitting behind me. We're not in the same office, but he's present. I want him to hear this because we're going to get into this in the third segment as well. Among the tyranny in this country are various groups who run interference for the left, who, and I can say this because I'm a Jewish Christian. If anybody else says it, they'll be branded as an anti-Semite. Just like Siaka can criticize the leftist African Americans that are also participating in the destruction of this country. But the Jewish left, frankly, is evil. It's evil. And they're the disciples of Karl Marx. They're not Jewish people. They're not to be confused with fellow Jews. Fellow Jews abhor what they do. But these people are generally not even religious. And a group which I've tangled with in the past when I experienced anti-Semitism myself, it helped start Judicial Watch. When I encountered a judge in Los Angeles, California by the name of William Keller, who was disparaging my Jewish client, my Chinese client, and my gay client at the time in a trademark case, I asked the ADL, that's the Anti-Defamation League. This is the group that claims to protect Jewish people from anti-Semitism, for help in looking into the judge. They were nowhere to be found. I found out the reason why. I actually learned from Ramsey Clark, who used to be Attorney General. He was leftist, but we became friends because he was someone who went against the establishment as well. I respected him, he respected me. He defended a lawyer that got involved in that controversy with regard to an issue that touched on the ADL. And he pointed out that the reason that Judge Keller was able to remain on the bench, generally speaking, is because he helped raise money for the Anti-Defamation League. Now, fast forward, just this week, Elon Musk is accused by the Anti-Defamation League, which frankly is so far left, it's borderline communist, Karl Marx-like. He was accused of being an anti-Semite. He's not an anti-Semite. Anti-Semites, perhaps, have posted on Twitter. There are people who are anti-Christian who post on Twitter. There are people who are of all sorts that post on Twitter. That doesn't make it right. But Elon Musk believes in free speech, which is one of the reasons he took over Twitter, because it wasn't free speech before that. It was discrimination. Well, he's lost 60%, according to reports, of his advertisers on Twitter. And this is the Anti-Defamation League, people who claim to represent Jewish people but don't, and in fact, just serve their own interests to raise money during the period when Keller was being questioned about his anti-Semitism, it was stated that, in fact, the ADL was involved, as I said, in raising money for those judges. And when I asked for help, there was none to be found with regard to my clients. So I wanted to raise this because this is the world we live in today. And people have to call it as they see it. I'm a Jewish Christian. I believe in Jesus. Jesus was Jewish, as a matter of fact. And I'm proud of my heritage. And I'm proud of the Jewish people as I am my Christian people. But these Jewish leftists, and you can see them on CNN, you can see them on MSNBC. I mean, I know, a fellow Jew knows another Jew, is that they are Marxists, most of them, and extremely destructive to this country. And, you know, if Elon Musk wants my help at Freedom Watch, I will bring a lawsuit for defamation against the Anti-Defamation League, among other things. But this is where we live in today. And Siaka knows this too, because he's a Black American. He knows how he's treated by Blacks on the left. I'm sure you I have other clients who are Black that stood up, who were conservative, stood up to the tyranny of the left. They were called Uncle Toms, they were called House Ends, they were threatened. It's unbelievable. So when we come back, Siaka, I want you to talk about that, because it's not just the Bidens, but it's others out there that basically want to destroy us. And we have to be strong, and we have to stand up for what is right. So I want people to go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause with tax-deductible contributions. We call it as we see it. We don't pull any punches. And again, with regard to judges like Timothy Kelly, who was appointed by Trump, he's as bad as the Obama, Clinton, and Bush judges over there. Trump didn't know who he was appointing. The Republican lobbyists gave him the names, stamped, nominated. But his judges are almost as bad. In fact, they've thrown him under the bus as well as the others. And we need to clean up the corruption on the federal court, in particular in the District of Columbia. It is literally a cesspool of corruption. We'll be right back with Siaka Massaquoi. I want to get his take on all of this. He's very articulate, and he's also a man who believes in his heart that he has to do what is right. Stay tuned. I'm back with Siaka Massaquoi, my client, my friend, a very brave American. I hope I didn't put you on the spot, Siaka, with my rampage against the Jewish left, but I'd like you to comment on how you feel about Blacks on the left who view you as an Uncle Tom and sellout.
Well, I always find it interesting, how the left works. They definitely use their different minority groups to make sure they shut down other minorities within and around the cities and all that, whoever they can affect. I like to call them like the Black revolutionaries. Right now they go to predominantly HBCU, or they just graduated college, and they think just because they have the paperwork that then perhaps there is a way to move that then they get from their teachers, who in colleges about 90+% are liberal leftists. A lot of them are. It's really sad because you have conversations with people, and you look at the biggest issues like the fatherless homes, or the murder rate being at 80%, and I've literally had them, people look me in the face and go, "Oh, well, people kill each other all the time," or "That's just the right wing talking point." And I find it fascinating, as you were talking about, kind of seeing where we're going as a culture, and seeing people getting locked up, January 6th stuff that's going on, people getting convicted for misdemeanors and spending real hard time in jail. And I started thinking to myself, man, that's so much like sorry, hold on, I got a plane's about to come through.
Hopefully not on a bombing run.
No, that's just the Southwest airline.
That'll be a step up for a January 6th peaceful protester.
Yeah, exactly right. No, but seeing what they're doing, because all these moves are to make sure they shut you down, and it's you, but it's as we see, it's for the ripple effect, right? When they tell somebody like myself, growing up, and anything I would do that wasn't deemed Black, I would be considered, trying to act white. And when you do that, if somebody next to me thinks that's the right way to be, they just stop themselves because they don't want to get made fun of like I did. We see the same thing over there with January 6th. Like, for the same thing the president of the United States has done himself, which is trespass. People are getting real federal prison time, and you're like, wait a second, that's so no one else ever even considers the idea of standing up against whoever's in power. It's the same tactic. It's just deeper and higher consequences now. Like what we're going through and what so many others, including friends of ours, JD, and many others from January 6th. It's wild.
Well, you've
see
been on
what's
the show before, but refresh everybody's recollection as to what happened to you relatively quickly. And then I want to move on to your take on the sentence against Enrico Tarrio and some of the others getting 22 years, 18 years, 17 years, people who never lifted a hand.
Well, so for
Anybody.
me, my home was raided on June 10th of 2021 at 5:45 in the morning. Had at least anywhere between 15 and 18 agents, guns drawn, um, cuffing myself up, my best friend, grabbing my godsons, 5 and 7 or 4 and 7 at the time. Um, as traumatic as it's a soft way of putting it, but it was like we've talked about before. It's Gestapo tactics. They presented me with one sheet of paper and then took all my stuff. And it wasn't until threatening to file a complaint a week and a half later, I was able to see the final paperwork that they put together, what they were gonna be there to take, which included my MAGA hats, my $3,000 computer, my phone, basically my AA journals, my old headshot, PDF flash drives. Uh, it was to shut you up, and I because I'm not a rich man, I don't have a bunch of power or anything like that. I'm not, born into royalty like that here in the U.S. And I felt the best thing to do was to get the story out there as soon as possible. We went live right away, right as it happened. Right after it happened, they walked out came in that morning and they left around noon, and we just started getting the word out. And I think that's been a positive thing because I've seen a lot of people that I've known go down quietly and think by being quiet it was going to spare them some type of headache and grief, and if anything, it just went the way they're going to go. So I was under the belief, and as I'm getting closer to God, under the belief that we just have to be bold. Evil's going to do what it's going to do, regardless on if we sit hiding in the corner or if we stand bold with it. So what does God have us do? I believe that's where I'm in this position, and I'm really glad to have met someone like
Well, and you brought a
Asher.
lawsuit in the district court in the Central District of California. A hack judge there dismissed it. We went up to the Ninth. We wanted an oral argument. We wanted to face them face to
Yep.
face, but they didn't want to face us because we obviously
Well,
they did
first they did, which was crazy because it was about almost 2 months of, hey guys, you're gonna have an oral argument in a week and a half before we were supposed to go in. The email comes in saying, sorry guys, we feel like you don't need to. But the funny thing is we found out it was a couple days earlier. We just found this out after the fact. But a Trump appointed judge who was taking our case, he recused himself for any case that had to do with Trump whatsoever, including the Twitter defamation suit that Trump had going. So he recused himself from all that. We had these 3 judges that came from, I would say the not friendlies, and they decided, oh
Biden,
yeah, you're fine.
Biden, Obama, and Clinton.
Right. Oh, the trifecta.
The 3 stooges. Yeah, we got the 3.
Yeah. And so, it wasn't surprising, but as we talked about the ruling to say when the government comes against you, just file paperwork with the the Senate Attorney General's office. I think they said they want us to do.
Yeah, the theory is, let me step in here, is that we sued in their individual capacity the director of the FBI,
Right.
Christopher Wray, and under a case which is called Bivens, is that if there's no other adequate remedy at law, which there wasn't here, then you can proceed against a government official for violating your constitutional rights against the individual, and we asked for large damages. So the judges come back, and they don't even have the courage to confront us, and they write on top of the opinion. They wrote it maybe in about 15 minutes, 2.5 pages, not to be used as precedent, not to be published, because they knew
published.
it was dishonest. And they say, well, you could have filed a complaint with the Office of Professional Responsibility or the Inspector General of the
Yeah, Inspector General. That's what it
Department.
was.
That's not a complaint at all. That's discretionary. That's not even worth the paper it's written on because
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
yeah, it was
It's
just
like
an illegal.
they violated your constitutional right. Go ahead and fill out some paperwork over by this government institution, and we'll review it.
Yeah, and that's the same people that violated your rights to rule on it, right?
Exactly. It's like to write that on a piece of paper, but like you said, to have them say, "Hey, it's not to be published as if it's not precedent," so they don't want they know it can't move forward and be used logically in any case, was very telling of what it was about. You know, they want to shut it down and go 100 miles per hour with this narrative of worst attack since Pearl Harbor and all these things because, you know, as you mentioned earlier with Terrio, you know, he's got 22 years. I knew he was going to get the highest amount so far because he was black. He's a black man. But I know they're trying to. I come to conclusion one way or the other, they're going to put Trump behind bars. That's just me. Nothing else. They're going to put him behind bars, and he may even win from behind bars, but they're going to do it.
Well, it's going to be very, very hard to win from behind bars. And even if he doesn't go behind bars, I'm turning this off because I think maybe Judge Kelly was calling. He doesn't like my criticism. But, you know, getting back to your situation, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. We'll see where we go. You know,
Yeah.
it's a long shot because they are, in fact, part of this establishment. They fear for their own lives up there, frankly. I mean, with some exceptions. And, you know, hopefully nobody harms them. We don't want that.
Well, you know, one thing I thought about in this whole process, you know, we got to a point where we were possibly going to be able to speak, and that was 2 years after they came into my home. And then reading the Bible, reading Exodus, learning about Moses' journey, he did all that, all the work for the people, and he didn't get to see the promised land. And the way I look at it is that, you know, somebody's got to step up, and even if we aren't the ones to get that like big celebration, I look at this as we're doing our part to chip away at what has been corroded, you know, and kind of infesting our country for so long. And I'm proud just to be a part of that with you. To me, it's about the journey of this thing, and who knows, it could take another 2 years for us to finally get in front and finally be able to speak. But it's not about making sure, you know, it's not about just getting the win. It's about making sure we endure till the end, as God says. So I'm personally hopeful that, you know, hey, they wanted to do what they did to Ninth Circuit. Great, we'll go up to the Supreme Court, and I want people to forget about it like they did that coach, and then look up and read a headline saying, just like they did the other way, Netflix actor rated. They can go Netflix actor wins lawsuit, you know, at Supreme Court.
Well, you're in a strong position because you did not breach the Capitol. Yeah, and you know that you have thus far not been charged with anything,
Yes,
and they've never
very clear.
justified that. They haven't given you back your computer or what you need to make a living. You haven't had any justice at the Ninth Circuit. No surprise.
Yeah.
But we'll see how they react. It's going to be very, very interesting.
And can you tell us what I keep trying to pronounce this when I do other shows, to have the whole court read it? What is it called again?
It's a petition for rehearing en banc, and you and I will discuss whether we want to go back to the Ninth Circuit and ask for that before we go to the Supreme Court, or just go directly to the Supreme Court. But I hope people will support us. I hope they will contribute to Freedom Watch to pay for this, because even the printing at the Supreme Court, this is how patrician it is, how elitist it is. Even the printing will cost probably $10,000 to $15,000 of the brief, because they want it, you know, so they can read it on the toilet. Actually, you know, they have a book and everything, and they can take it in there.
We can give them some gift cards to Staples. It'd be a lot cheaper there. You know, they're like, we can make it so much easier for them, guys. You don't have to use the government stuff. It costs too much.
No, it's a little book like this, you know, special printing.
Yeah, they have to.
It's
that.
Very expensive. So I hope people will go to freedomwatchusa.org, because it may be our only opportunity, among some others, to try to reverse the trend here. Now we have another class action in the Northern District of Florida for an individual by the name of Jesus Rivera. And we've got something else up our sleeve. Watch what we do next week in that regard, another class action coming down the line. And SIAC is going to be part of that as well. But we have to keep punching. If for no reason than to educate the American people that our legal system has become compromised and corrupt and will not address these issues. So what do you do, Siaka, when you see these things happening, when you see peaceful protesters getting, 22 years, 17 years, 10 years, 2 years, people being thrown in prison who just walked into the Capitol have cancer, they can't even get adequate care in the DC jails over there.
Well, I mean, you gotta. I think there's two steps to this depending on where you are. If you're someone out there watching, wondering, man, my country's falling apart, I want to get involved. Like you said, support if you can. Support our case here against the FBI here at freedomwatch.com, and so that way we're able to continue to move forward. Then the second side of it is look around your neighborhood. It's this attack from the Marxists that we're talking about. It's not just the government, federal government. It's not just in Hollywood or in Los Angeles cities. It's everywhere. And if you look up, I'm sure people where they are will find the fight that they need to get into. So if you're not getting involved, whether it's support, get your sweat equity out there and be a part of the solution, not the problem.
That's very important, and that's the basis of my book too. Takes the counter-revolution, wake up America. If you're at retirement age, and you don't care about your kids and grandkids and future generations, if you're just going to ride it out with the money you've saved, of course, it's being dissipated now with the economy.
Yeah.
Then you're as guilty as the people who are committing these crimes. And if you're young or middle-aged, you're not going to have a country much longer. So it's time to rise up in that regard. And one of the ways you can do that, and I know I'm, advertising right now, but you have to.
You have to.
We need the funds. Our contributions have fallen down because the Republicans siphoned a lot of it off during these election cycles. And frankly, even those people on Capitol Hill, people like Josh Hawley or people like Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're having their hands tied behind their backs by the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. We'll be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman, and we'll elaborate even further. We're back with the verdict, ladies and gentlemen. Patriots, people of faith, those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers, or anyone that just wants to preserve liberty and justice and is honest, because we have to be honest with ourselves. This is not going to go away. It's like a disease, contagious disease that will last the rest of your lives, however long that may be. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I don't want to be an ultra pessimist. But unless we face reality, this country will not exist much longer. And you can see it happening. And you can see, and the point I was making before the break, is the Republican Party, the rhinos, primarily, not all of them. I'm a registered Republican too, but I keep it only to criticize them, and I haven't had time to quit. But the fact is that these people on Capitol Hill are not in it for real. They're in it for their stature. They're in it for raising money, for acquiring power. When they've had the opportunity to really make a change, they do nothing. And that's why, they've even attempted on several occasions to throw President Trump under the bus. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy wanted Trump impeached or removed under the 25th Amendment for, not being stable right after January 6th. So people need to understand the reality. You can watch Fox News all you want, and, it supplies some valuable information, but it does not tell you the truth that we have no representation in Washington, D.C. Now, there are some good Republicans. Siaka, I believe you're a Republican. You're a good Republican, but you're in the minority. And this is the problem that we have. We need more political parties. We need more competition. I believe we need to declare independence again. That's what our Third Continental Congress is moving towards, to declare a new government and not a new nation, to get ethical people to run it, to remove immunity from government officials such that you don't need a Bivens action to bring a case against the director of the FBI. They're liable for what they do if it's negligent or criminal. And also, frankly, to make some rules changes and how we get better judges, because the way we get them now, they get there through legalized bribery by and large, campaign contributions. That's how you get on the bench, from special interests. So they put their yes men on the bench, and the yes men do what those who got them on the bench want. And it's not much different than the judges of King George III, who rubber stamped his edicts, back in the days, months and years leading up to 1776. So I'm going to give you the final word, Siaka, to, in fact, do the benediction here, because if you believe in God or not, there's some universal values.
Real stuff.
Universal values. And those
You know,
values are not being adhered to in this country, and it's destroying the nation.
well, I've had this question come up a few times, especially, people still in the party. I'm vice chair of the LAGOP now, so been dealing with the political side here in great Los Angeles. And what I'm seeing the most is that people of faith need to be a part of the solution. That we need to run your assembly districts. You need to find candidates to run because what is missing in government, just like in entertainment, just like in a schooling system, is more people of faith, Christians, Jews. We need to get involved, other to step back and let someone else take care of it. You're hoping that they may share your value, but you never know. And we've seen now that is not a way to move. It leaves us exposed, and it leaves us in a position that that we're in now, and it's just getting worse. So yeah, we can. I think you're right. If the revolutions that we need to have, one of them is getting Christians, getting Jewish folks, people of faith back into the government, which we have less and less of, so that they have your interest at heart. I really do believe that's how you can start to shift, and you take over piecemeal by piecemeal, like they took over. You get your assembly district first, go out to your county, then get your region, and then get your state. To hope that it's going to be one fell swoop, I think it can be a little naive. But we need to get people used to being active, right? Get that muscle memory moving in a way that you know how to move, go up to Sacramento. You know what the bills look like. You know how to gather your community now. You're talking about these
We got
issues.
about 30 seconds, Siaka. I just want to let you know. So
Yeah, so I think that that's what you got to do, and at the end of the day, guys, like Joe Biden tried to scare people by saying unless you have F-16, you can't do anything about it. But we have God, and we have the Creator of everything, and lean on the Creator of everything. You don't have to do everything; you just got to do what He has
and I might add,
asked you to do.
you and I are religious. There are other people that are inwardly religious. There are people who are not tied to any denomination. That doesn't mean that you have to be religious in the formal sense to do it. If goodness is in your heart and you believe in basic values, then you have to do something now. So I thank you, Siaka, and God bless you as my friend, colleague, and client. And we will keep fighting. We will keep punching till we prevail. That's the positive side of Larry Klayman, Freedom Watch, and Siaka Massaquoi. God bless you. Thank you for listening to us. Remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. Thank you for listening.
Amen.